Hi, this is Dr. Karen from the EPIC Foundation, known as Empowering People with Invisible Chronic Illness Foundation, but we're best known as the EPIC Foundation. I am here with a very special guest, and I am so excited, so excited. But before we start with that, I am going to play a short clip for you guys. So bear with me while I share this video. Okay, we're going to test out my tech savvy skills here.
You got it. I believe in you.
Thank you. You always do. All right.
Here we go.
Here we go.
The mother of Griffin Geit. He is the unlucky recipient of primary adrenal insufficiency. We as a family have been dealing with this for many years. He started to scream, and he said that his legs were hurting. I just knew that, oh my gosh, his heart cannot perfuse blood to his legs. That's what the pain is. Busted through the double doors into the pediatric ER, so they called in a pediatric cardiologist. Then she grabbed my hands and she looked deeply into my eyes and she said, had you waited 15 more minutes, this would have ended.
Yes, it's tired. You never know what's going to happen. Like, you could throw up or pass out anytime. You never know if you're going to have a crisis. You have to always be careful of your movement.
The challenge for me now is that he is growing up, and it is time for him to be able to have an independent life. At this time, I don't feel confident that he could do that if he were to get sick or go into a crisis, if he were alone. And there's nothing I can do. There's Narcan for people who overdose. There is nitroglycerin under the tongue. Those type of things buy people time. My brother doesn't have anything to help buy him a little bit of time. So I heard about TwistJet through an email. In my mind, for so long, I thought, how is this not available? That would just be life-changing. It would be life-altering for all of us. If you're struggling with this condition, you can't even save your own life. I think people would care more if they knew more about it.
Okay.
I think that video gets every time.
Okay. Sorry, it was playing into the next video. So, yeah. So it gets me every time too. I need a second, All right, I haven't even introduced our next guest, and I'm sitting here getting emotional, so please bear with me here. Oh my gosh. Okay. Where she says, if people knew, they would care more. Boy, I mean, how many times have I said that? But before I go on, let me at least tell you why I have our next guest on and introduce you guys, okay? As you can see, this is Julia Anthony, and she is an affiliate, and her company is an affiliate to the EPIC Foundation, and for reasons that we're going to get into later. But right now, I am very proud and excited to introduce our next guest. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Dr. Karen. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing us to share such a compelling video. We'll get into why what you do is so earth-shattering and groundbreaking. But I would like for you to introduce yourself and let us know who you are.
Okay. So Julia Anthony, I'm 29 years old. I'll be good old 30 this year. And I live in Philadelphia. I'm in North Jersey right now, but I live in Philly. And I am an adrenal disease survivor as well as a life science entrepreneur. So I was born with an autosomal recessive disorder called congenital adrenal hyperplasia, a rare and chronic condition. And my body does not produce enough cortisol. So instead of a fight or flight reaction, typically when there's acute stress that occurs to my body, so fever, vomiting, knock on wood, car accident, something like that, my body starts to systemically shut down and I go into shock without a life-saving injection. My brother actually has this condition too, one of my brothers. And the current life-saving care that people who are at risk for this adrenal crisis need takes far too many steps. We count 14 steps, the way that we count them. In some countries, if there's 2 separate vials, it's even more than that. And that's because the drug needs mixing immediately prior to injection. So I went to graduate school to get a design degree with a healthcare focus, and we are creating a new auto injector to help save people's lives who are at risk for this condition, like Griffin, like my brother, and like a whole lot of other people who we hear from on a daily basis now at this point. So, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. And it's amazing. So let me just back up to your story. So you were born with this condition, and luckily, you know, someone figured out what it was, because what you mentioned is that in acute stress, your body can go into shock. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize when they hear the term adrenal crisis. They don't realize that your body going into shock is a life-threatening response. And so people can actually die from an adrenal crisis. You also mentioned that in the traditional methods of an emergency protocol, you counted 14 steps, and in other areas, possibly even more steps to save a person's life when they're having a life-threatening response that can lead to death.
Yep. So think like there's a fire in your kitchen, there's a fire in your house, and you go to grab the fire extinguisher, but you have to do a whole bunch of stuff to it before you can maybe put that fire out. That's essentially, as an analogy, that's essentially the problem we are working to solve.
Wow, can you imagine? And the thing about a fire is that it spreads quickly, right? So from the first moment it starts, if you've got to go through all those steps, I mean, imagine that. Imagine. I mean,
like Griffin's story, 15 minutes would have made a significant difference with him being here, not being able to even share his story. And this month is Adrenal Disease Awareness Month in April, so I'm glad we're having this talk now. And there's a whole lot of exciting stuff going on this month. National Adrenal Diseases Foundation, EPIC, Adrenal Alternatives, CARES. I believe AI United is doing a handful of things as well. American Association of Endocrinologists. I mean, it's endless. One thing Solution is doing, along with Molly's Miracle, which is a nonprofit group over in the UK, is we're sharing 30 letters for 30 days throughout the month of April, one day, from patients or their families about experiences they've had as adrenal disease survivors in this case. However, today's post does include multiple pages of people who have passed away because of an adrenal crisis. And I can only hope like a conversation like this and all of the work each group is respectively doing here and overseas, here in the US and overseas, you know, these deaths were not in vain, and we can keep making progress and change.
Absolutely, Julia. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe at the end of our conversation, we can share the video again for the folks who had not had the chance to watch Griffin's story. But you're absolutely right. I think the part that got me the most, and I'm sure that you've thought about your own journey and the people around you, is when they said, had it been 15 minutes later, that story would have ended differently. Mm-hmm. And I'm a person who I believe in the narrative, and I believe there's power in our stories because there's power in our voices. And all of these companies and organizations that you've mentioned, we believe in sharing stories. I mean, it's part of our story to give back because of what we've been through. So it's so compelling to me that we share these stories, but how many of us have heard, had you waited so many minutes later, your story would have ended differently?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in Griffin's case, I met with him and his mother and his sister as part of that video shoot. And I believe they got stuck in traffic, on the way to the hospital, and that really cut things close. But some of these letters that we've shared as a company throughout this month, airplanes, soccer fields next to a pool. I mean, what's really interesting, I think, about sharing these stories from patients' perspectives is the conversation threads that come out of them. So the letters themselves are important and powerful, but then someone will say, I had a similar experience, or thank you for hearing me. This is how I feel very often. Or they ask a question that then promotes awareness and education and just conversation around things that I think a lot of people feel very alone about otherwise, because, as EPIC stands for invisible, your people with adrenal disease, typically, if they're well managed and taking their medication and relatively healthy, we don't look sick. But when we're sick, There isn't a fire until there's a fire, and then you really need to be able to put it out quickly. So just the empathy building around this and the opportunity to do that through storytelling, I think, is really important. And we're very thankful. I know Rachel at Molly's Miracle, and certainly myself. I mean, people putting themselves out there to write these letters. I'm sure they're not easy to write, and then to have that shared to the world. So very grateful for people participating.
Absolutely. What an amazing campaign. I mean, I almost hate to call it a campaign because sometimes people think, oh, campaign gimmick. This is no gimmick. This is real life. And, I love it. I love the fact that you are sharing people's stories and you're giving them a voice. And I'm sure you hear a wide range of stories. I personally believe in anecdotal data, and I believe that's the most powerful data that we have are the stories of real life people, because medical doctors, they will learn about adrenal insufficiency, they'll learn about it, but to actually hear stories of real people, no one fits into this tiny, neat little box.
No, not medically or any other way.
Not in any other way.
At least that's my belief. Yeah, and I think too, there are some pharma companies that really do focus on patients. I think Amicus Pharma is a really good example. They're actually here in Philly. Well, I'm in New Jersey, but they're in Philly and in New Jersey. And Pfizer has a rare patient group, and Shire focuses on a lot of rare diseases, and those are some of the bigger ones. Certainly, there's others. But I think, and yes, I'm 29 years old, so I'm not a 50-year veteran in this space, but I think there's a a disconnect and a gap between that world and that space and what's prioritized a lot of times, usually driven by money, and the opportunity to make money, and what patients say they actually need. And Rare Patient Voice is a really good example of a group that's trying to bridge that gap. PRA Health Sciences is another group that does a lot of patient-focused work in pharma and devices, and they're really focused on decentralized clinical trials, which with COVID is especially exciting and kind of exploding. But I only know of these groups because I've lived this all the time, and I think a lot of people aren't aware, and unfortunately they're a rarity compared to a lot of other people in this space. They're working for patients, but they don't actually hear patients. So I hope Solution can be, and I can be, a bridge for that. Having a successful solution that is a tangible product, but bridging that to what patients actually say they need and want, and having their voices heard.
Absolutely, Julia, and what a great point, that, you know, like we mutually have people and companies that we affiliate with, like Rare Patient Voice, that, you know, stands up for the people in terms of understanding what patients need, and through their stories, and they do surveys to hear about what patients actually go through, what they need, you know, in various areas of their lives. And that's what we basically do. And that's what I love about you and Solution Medical, is that you have really taken a lot of time to investigate the needs of the people. I mean, that's what Griffin's story was all about, is hearing their needs as a family and his need as a patient, and responding to that need. And I gotta say, you know, I hope this is not an insult to all the young people out there, but I am always in awe when I hear that you're not even 30 years old. I mean, I'm just in awe. Like, it's hard for me to remember that.
Thank you. I think having a condition, sorry, I'm talking very casually. Let me try to talk a little more.
You know how we do.
I think that having this condition and needing to be your own advocate, which we've had discussions about before. We've done other presentations on this Venture Cafe and whatnot. Forces you to grow up quickly. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, I'm an old soul in a lot of ways, and I do think that my condition has been probably the big impetus for that. In some ways, I think I'm probably accurately 29 in others, but in some ways, yeah. It just gives you a different perspective, you know. We collaborate with some people in Australia and in the UK, Germany, Singapore. We actually have a really exciting event coming up that I'd love to mention later on. I forget the exact date, but I think it's 2 weeks from now. And one person in particular, I won't mention their name. I don't want to get emotional, but he said he sends emails every day and always responds because he doesn't know if he's going to be around the next day. He has Addison's, and not to be dramatic and like mushy, but that's real life for a lot of people. So and not just with adrenal disease. I mean, I know Epic's community is much broader than just adrenal disease. So it's and I think that a lot of people who don't have that a part of their life can't necessarily relate to it. Well, like a lot of things, you don't appreciate it maybe or fully understand it until it affects you.
Yeah.
And I just hope that, again, through storytelling and empathy building and also collaboration like we're doing today, and we've done all throughout this month a whole lot of groups, can only strengthen that. So that's the hope anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't find you dramatic at all, Julia. I mean, you know that I'm a mush bear too. Like I get so mushy, and especially when we get together. And by the way, you're right. You and I have done several events like this together, and we have a few YouTube videos, both on your YouTube and my YouTube, where we collaborate about patient advocacy and self-advocacy, which is so very important to us for that reason. And, I get choked up when I think about someone writing you an email every day. As you know, for me personally, I went from having Cushing's disease, too much cortisol, to Addison's disease, where I don't produce cortisol at all as a result of treatment. So when I tell you I can relate, I can definitely relate. And it's almost surreal to think about the fact that you live every day with purpose because you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. And that is why when I found you, or you found me, what happened first, I don't know.
I don't remember. I think it was Mary, or did Mary find you through me? I don't remember. Somehow we all got.
Oh, you know what? You know what? Okay, I didn't forget about you, Winslow. It was Winslow. I didn't forget about you. Winslow I'll be interviewing Winslow the last Saturday this month, so you don't want to miss it. Winslow, we love you. Winslow from Adrenal Alternatives Foundation hooked us up, and it was divine though. So when I did not forget about you, but I am so grateful that she connected us because and yes, Epic does serve a broader community, but I'm so glad we get to talk about this because it is Adrenal Disease Awareness Month. And a lot of people, when they hear about adrenals, they think about, oh, your adrenals are burnt out and things like that, and not to be dismissive of situations like that, but they don't realize that these adrenal diseases that we're speaking of, they are life-threatening, and we don't mean to be dramatic, but I almost feel like sometimes I have to be dramatic for people to get it. So when I say it's life-threatening, that is a literal phrase. We're not saying, how people say stress can kill me, and it's like, oh, yeah, just, quit your job or whatever. No, stress can literally kill the people in our community, and this is why the work that you do, and that you say you speak of so casually because you're so modest, it's unbelievable. The work that you do is groundbreaking, and I have to get the folks out there to understand the significance of what you do, Julia, because you're not going to tell on yourself. You're not going to say it. You're not going to say it.
I probably won't. No, I won't.
You won't. This is groundbreaking. Can you please just, in the context of understanding that people can die in an adrenal crisis. So if you have that sort of stress response where you need a whole bunch of cortisol in your body, can you explain to us why it's so significant to go from 14 different steps to what you are offering the adrenal community, to one step? Imagine 14 different steps to put out a fire, to that one step where you can save a life. Can you explain that to us, please?
Yeah. I like to say that, so I have adrenal disease, but because I'm so close to the company, I usually say my story doesn't matter, which is kind of ironic because I'm here talking about my story, but I'm so close to it that sometimes I think I'm biased, right? I can't have my personal experiences blind me to what other people might experience and what they might need. Like maybe I want one part of this device to be orange, but it should be red. That's completely hypothetical, but that's a very basic example. So I'll give you my brother, for example. He lives in New York City and went to NYU, and then he went to Columbia. And 4 times in one summer while he was at NYU, he had a crisis. It was very, very hot that summer. I don't talk to him too often, but I heard about this, right? I heard that Joe was sick, and fire department comes. There's like a whole entourage in New York City of who comes in what order and everything, and I don't know it all. But the ambulance showed up, the fire department showed up, the police showed up. That was after public safety was there, and they did not know how to help him, and they did not know what to do. And they thought, oh, it's a college kid, whatever. He's hungover or he's sick, because this is before COVID, which feels like it was eons ago. But they did not know how to help him. So that's one aspect of it. Even people who do know how to do this and recognize it, the number of steps are just so tedious, and it's a small. You see a needle, so there's needle phobia. The thing you're working with is glass. Sometimes that breaks or it malfunctions. And even if you're able to do all of these steps, it still takes a pretty significant amount of time. Again, like fake EpiPen is another analogy. You just need to be able to give someone their EpiPen. You don't want to have a 14-step process for life insurance. You just want to be able to save somebody's life. So yeah, we're streamlining it down to 1 step with a pre-filled auto injector. An interesting thing about it, besides the needle depth and the volumes we can hold, and I can kind of nerd out there if you'd like, is that it's orientation independent. And so the best of our knowledge, this is completely new. Everything else on the market right now that does any sort of mixing of a drug needs to be held in a very specific orientation because of air. So if I were to be on the floor vomiting, which is usually what happens when I'm having a crisis, I don't want to have to think about holding my device perfectly upright to get it to work and to extrude air and everything else. So our device is designed to be able to meet the user quite literally where they are, sitting upright or laying down or whatever position they're in, which, we do plan to use the device for other markets, but we're starting with the adrenal disease space, and especially in an acute setting, this ability to have a device that works no matter what position it's in. Certainly you need to, if this is your skin, you have to inject into your skin. That needs to be a specific orientation. But the mixing component and the air evacuation is something we're really, really paying attention to be able to meet users where they are. That was a very long-winded answer, but I hope it answered your question.
It did. I am literally speechless, and I'm never speechless, as you know.
I plead the fifth. I'm not touching that one. Come on now.
I put you into a trap, right?
Yeah, no. Recognized and avoiding. Nope.
You are a smart woman, let me tell you. Yes, you are avoiding. Yes, I'm rarely speechless, and I'm speechless. How amazing is that? That is just so super amazing. And as you mentioned, there's so many symptoms with adrenal crisis. A lot of folks don't know that for many of us, there's cognitive symptoms as well.
Oh yeah.
Right. So for me, I literally cannot add 1 + 1. And for the longest time, as my kids were growing up, as you know, I've got 2 daughters, ages 10 and 18. going to college. Oh my goodness. But anyway, as they were growing up and kind of having to learn what mommy looks like when she's not herself, they would ask me things like, what time is it? Can you add 1 + 1? And I was, there'd be a clock right in front of me and I wasn't able to like vocalize the time or add numbers or anything. So in my situations, if I get to that point of cognitive decline and confusion, I cannot self-administer the injection.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us who experience that, our loved ones who have to do it, I'm thinking about them as well. Our caregivers, shout out to our caregivers out there. I'm thinking about my husband, and even if, God forbid, my kids were ever in the situation where they would have to help me out and inject, I'm thinking about how your device is, again, so groundbreaking. I mean, because I get emotional thinking about how I've got these kids at home who are like, they're terrified to have to go through all those steps. They shouldn't have to go through that, but like, if they can do it where if I'm on the ground, I oftentimes will lose consciousness if I'm on the ground or whatever, like not only for us, but our loved ones, right? I mean, this is as we saw from the video, and we'll replay the video later on, this is a family disease.
Absolutely. I think that's what inspired me too to create the company is, how my brother and I didn't go to public school, not because it wasn't a great school, but we couldn't have our medication with us on the bus. And then the way that the medication was going to be handled at the school, a very large school with 2 different campuses, and we were. He still is. Me, not so much. Very active. So, hypothetically back and forth between these different campuses and whatnot, not being allowed to carry our medication because it's a needle and they don't want us carrying drugs with us on the bus, on our person, and locked in a nurse's office that is however far away from where we actually are. That's one example, and sports and traveling and just how we were able to relate to other kids and what our family needed to do to allow us to do what we wanted to do and empower us to try new things, but in a safe way. So, we could still be here to talk about it. It was a lot. It drove our routines. It drove our life. Every day, the first thing I do is go to my medicine box and take my meds, and same at night. And I live my days by that pill box, really. And it is. And if you go on Solutions Facebook page, or we're also on Twitter and Instagram, you can see some of these letters. I mean, I don't like talking about myself very much, and I'm glad that you shared Griffin's story, but like, look at these letters. It's other people's stories too. And it's not just words on a page. I mean, they were written by real people, and the names from today, people who have passed away, 3-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 30-year-olds. Like, we're not talking about 80 or 90-year-olds, which is still sad in its own right. But I mean, we're talking newborns and like kids. And it's avoidable to some extent with a better delivery system. Certainly, it's a lot more complicated than that. Education, awareness, there's EMS, there's, the whole airplane situation and travel, and schools and fire departments. I mean, it's endless, but that's why all of us as these individual groups are continuing to make progress and make change where we can. But I do think a device helps. I mean, even just raising funds for our company and talking to the engineers and the drug formulation people and all the things that we're doing, they're all learning about this as part of the build out and scale up process. And that in and of itself is a win. You know, when people are like, I didn't know about this, tell me more about it. Yeah. Yes, if we get $1 million in addition to that, that's fantastic. But if we get that or a little bit less, but they say that they learned something, that's invaluable. So.
Absolutely. Can you share with us once again what your handle is on your social media platform so that we can all read these letters?
Sure. Let me pull it up because I don't have it memorized and I don't want to get it wrong here.
Okay.
If I was a young person, I feel like I would know this. On Instagram, it's Solution Med LLC, and I believe it is the same for Twitter and Facebook as well. It's the full name. Our logo is like a pinwheel with gray and blue. And if you go to Epic's pages, I believe you can also follow links back to our social media as well because of this event today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Because I definitely want people to be able to, go on your pages, read these letters. I'm sorry, I'm reading a comment here. I'll get to the comments, but someone really special wrote a comment that said, "That was funny, Julia, if you were a young person."
Oh boy.
Guess who said that?
It's probably my mother. It's my mother, isn't it? You're laughing, so that's the right answer.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this would be a good time to shout out to.
I always count on her to show up to everything I do. Thank you.
Your mom shows up to everything. So I'm going to read her comments first because she started out with a comment at the beginning of the live and said, "So moving, this has to happen." Michelle Anthony, but I call her Mama Anthony endearingly, because we love our warrior mamas.
And now we're making fun of my age. That turned really quickly. That's great.
No, she's making fun of you saying.
Making fun of my age, yeah.
If you were a young person, you are young. Oh my goodness, we like I said before, I'm in awe of everything you've accomplished before the age of 30. It's amazing. We have someone else who made a comment, Mary, who is an Epic member and someone I know personally, a friend of mine. She said, "Hi, Julia Anthony, welcome, and thank you for sharing your story. God bless you for your strength and courage."
Thanks, Mary. Is this a Mary I have met? I've met a couple Marys affiliated with Epic.
You have not met this Mary, but this is another special Mary. And Mama Anthony, is one of your greatest supporters. I mean, it's just, you are so right. Every event that we've done together, she's right there.
Yeah.
What would you say to our warrior mamas, warrior daddies, warrior caregivers out there, who stand in the gap for us?
I'm not a parent, so I don't know if I can give advice like that. I just know that the people who reach out to me, which is usually parents, sometimes we hear directly from patients, but usually it's parents. They just want the best for their child, and they are willing to go within their means above and beyond to get them what they need. Even if that means researching things or contacting strangers and hoping they answer, I will always answer. I always set time aside to answer. And contacting other parents, and asking questions, and not being afraid to say what needs to be said or do what needs to be done in order to get your child what they need. I don't know, it sounds cliche and it's kind of high level, but having not done it myself, I can just say that, you know, that's, as a parent, that's what my family did for me. So without that, you know, medication adherence is a big thing. And like, it is ingrained in my bones to make sure that I take my medication. And it's ingrained in my bones to make sure that I have my injectable kit that currently exists with me, you know, and let people know around me what I need. I trained the nurses at my universities on how to help me because they did not know what to do. And I've trained bosses at former jobs and, you know, positions. So that wouldn't be the case if my parents had taught me and told me how important that was. So yeah, it's scary, but like, embrace and accept that and use it to do what needs to get done. Also, a woman named Jenna, I think I can share this. I hope I can share this. There's a book being written right now by a parent that sort of fills this gap. She's not a doctor, but she's the parent of a young girl who has adrenal disease. And she's writing from a parent's perspective about the most important things that are actually digestible when you're getting all of this thrown at you and you find out your child's diagnosis for other parents. I'm not sure when that book's going to become available. I can tell you it's a very good book. I helped edit it. It's fantastic. You know, stuff like that. I don't think every parent out there is going to write a book. Jenna's pretty incredible. But like, read that book and connect with other parents and ask questions. And if you can, take your experience one day and use it to help others somehow. Like Jenna's doing. I know my mom does. She speaks with a lot of people around the world. I think she's currently in touch with someone in India, and that wonderful person is going to be a part of one of our upcoming events.
Oh, wow.
And like I have, you know, as much as you can, take your I want to use a phrase here that's not appropriate, so I won't. Take your situation and turn it into a positive one. I'll leave it at that.
I don't know what you were about to say, but I'm sure it's very appropriate.
We're trying to keep it PC, Dr. Karen, so you'll invite me back someday. That kicked off your show, so.
That is very sound advice. I love it. I love it. Couple more comments here. Carrie says, you two are so awesome. Cushing's not AI, but probably will be soon. That is so awesome. Julia, on your help to get a better way to administer hydrocortisone. I would be looking and trying in any way to make awareness. Thank you, Carrie, for that. Mama Anthony gives advice to our caregivers here. She says, I would say to mamas and papas, you know your child better than anyone. Anyone is in caps, including their doctors. You are their number one advocate. Use your voice. God bless. Absolutely. Use your voice. And isn't that what we've been talking about this entire time, is using the power of our voices? Thank you for that. You know, as we wrap up here, Julia, I would like for you to, if you can, share with us the next steps for Solution Medical, including upcoming events that we should know about. I would love to hear about things that are coming up for you.
Sure. So from a company standpoint, we're optimizing the device for manufacturing. This is what's called a combination product. So it isn't just it's empty now. It's not just the glass, and it's not just the water. It's the whole thing together. It's not just the device. It's not just the drug. It's the whole thing together. That makes it. This was already pretty complicated. That makes it especially complicated. And now we're at the point of trying to bring all of these different things and aspects together so that we can make it. And I mean, we've made it. We have devices, but we don't have a device that would pass, regulatory yet. So we're optimizing for manufacturing before we then go into some clinical trials. From an event perspective, I think it's the 24th. I don't want to keep going on my phone. We'll have information out about it on one of the upcoming AADAM calendars. We are doing an international adrenal disease no borders event, a candid conversation for about 1 hour as part of the Entrepreneurs of the World series out of New York City. With Dr. Geffner. I believe he's based in California. And then, let's see, we have people from Singapore, the UK, California, Australia, Africa, and India. When I said and say we are doing this with a global mindset, from the device to the drug formulation to talking to patients, I am not kidding. So we're going to have a really interesting conversation about what adrenal disease looks like around the world and people's different experiences to raise awareness as part of this awareness month. I believe on May 1st, we're having a workout awareness event. The details are still coming together. I will be working out for whatever that's worth. Hopefully I don't need an injection. Hopefully it's not too crazy of a workout. I think we're live streaming it as well, and we'll be inviting people to participate. So that'll be fun. And then we have, events investor events coming up. We have a Panovation in Philadelphia, where we're part of the J-Labs program. There's an event coming up there, but there's always stuff going on. Just if you follow us on social media, you'll see the events and can tune in. And really, April is Adrenal Disease Awareness Month, but we try to not only keep that to April. All this great stuff happens in April, and then until the following April, sometimes it feels like there's a bit of a lull outside of a few very large international conferences. So keeping up that awareness is really important. And please, this month, look at these letters and contribute, whether it be on social media or just with people like embrace your story as much as you're able to and when you're ready, and then share it as much as you're willing and feel safe doing, because I do think it can only help you if you need something, and then other people too.
Yeah, lots of great stuff going on. That is amazing. That's wonderful stuff. And as Julia mentioned, it's really important to share. We take it granted the power of sharing, but please do share about Solution Medical, about the work that Julia is doing with this amazing company. The more we share, the more we can increase awareness, and the more we increase awareness, the better chance we have of helping to save lives. So it is vitally important. Subscribe to their channel, subscribe to Epic, do what you can to continue to spread the word. That's really, really important. Julia, I thank you for spending time with me today. out of your really busy schedule. So I always appreciate that so much. Like I said before, I think I'm going to try to share this video again if I can.
It's also on our website, and I believe it's on our socials too. But
sorry, I shared it I started by accident.
No, you're good. It's also available up and out and about. But we're sharing a letter a day. Today's letter, I think, was 11 or 12 pages, just the one letter.
Wow.
And you don't have to read the whole thing to get the point of it, but I recommend you read the whole thing. So anyway, it's up and out there, but it might be buried. So thank you for sharing Griffin's story. And thanks to Griffin, too, again, and his family for allowing us to go to their home and shoot this video.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I will share the video to end off with, but yes, go and read the letter and share. Okay, so speaking of share, I'm going to try to share my screen again.
Okay. Shall we say bye now, or are we saying bye after it's over?
We can say bye after it's over, unless you want to. Unless you're ready to say goodbye.
I'm not ready to say goodbye. I'm good. I'm just asking. Okay.
All right. Okay, let me just.
I'm the mother of Griffin Geit. He is the unlucky recipient of primary adrenal insufficiency. We as a family have been dealing with this for 9 years. He started to scream, and he said that his legs were hurting. I just knew that, oh my gosh, his heart cannot perfuse blood to his legs. That's what the pain is. Busted through the double doors into the pediatric ER. So they called in a pediatric cardiologist. Then she grabbed my hands and she looked deeply into my eyes and she said, had you waited 15 more minutes, this would have ended.
Guys, this is tired. You never know what's going to happen. Like, you could throw up or pass out anytime. You never know if you're going to have a crisis. You have to always be careful what you're going to do.
The challenge for me now is that he is growing up, and it is time for him to be able to have an independent life. At this time, I don't feel confident that he could do that if he were to get sick or go into a crisis, if he were alone. And there's nothing I can do. There's Narcan for people who overdose. There is nitroglycerin under the tongue. Those type of things buy people time. My brother doesn't have anything to help buy him a little bit of time. So I heard about TwistJet through an email. In my mind, for so long, I thought, how is this not available? That would just be life-changing. It would be life-altering for all of us. If you're struggling with this condition, you can't even save your own life. I think people would care more if they knew more about it.
Okay.
And now you know more about it. There we go.
Now you know. Yeah. Thank you so much, Julia. I've had an amazing time with you. Of course, I always talk longer with you than I originally planned.
Sorry about that.
It's totally on me. It's totally on me because I could talk to you for hours and hours, especially, we're so passionate about patient advocacy.
Well, let's connect. Let's do our usual connect next month or something. And I know there's a ton of stuff you're doing this month. It's on the calendars. So good luck, with everything going on.
Absolutely. Thank you. And good luck to you. And again, out there, please share about Solution Medical and let's see how we can support them. Let's support because what they're doing is really important work. Thanks again, Julia. Together we are epic. I'm so happy to have spoken with you today. We will talk very soon.
Absolutely.
And All right. It's a wrap.
Thanks for everything you do, too.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.